I want to describe a failover situation which could result in a rollback of some data that was previously committed to MongoDB. So imagine you have 3 servers right here, 1, 2, and 3. And imagine this guy is the primary, and writes are going along to this node, and they're getting replicated out. But let's say that you are writing and these nodes are lagging behind for a few seconds, and all of a sudden this node goes down. So if that node goes down, then one of these two will be elected as the primary. But there are writes on this node that this node doesn't have yet, if the op log hasn't yet been replicated. So this guy is going to come up right here as the new primary, and he is not going to have those writes. Then, after a period of time, this guy might come back up as a secondary. So let's say he comes up as a secondary. So this Mongo server comes back up, number 1, as a secondary. When he comes back up, he'll look at the primary, which is this node now, to see if there's anything he needs to take. And when he does that, he's going to realize that he has writes that are not in the current primary. And so what he's going to do with those writes, what node 1 is going to do with those writes, is he is going to roll them back. So he's going to roll them back and put them into a file, and they could be applied manually if you'd like, but they won't be part of the data set. So this is a scenario where failover can result in rollback of some data that had been previously committed. Now there's a way to avoid this particular scenario for the most part, and that's by waiting until, when you're writing to this primary initially, you wait until the majority of the nodes have the data, and then that vulnerability won't exist for the most part. There's some small corner cases and outstanding JIRAs on very strange situations where it could potentially happen, but basically it will not happen. So if you simply set your W write concern to wait until a majority of the nodes have the write, then it won't happen. And we're going to go through how that works after we go through the drivers. But just so you understand that in the default case, if you just set W equal to 1, and even if you set J equal to 1, which means I want to make sure that I don't return until it's committed to the journal on this node, that if this node was to fail before he replicated his stuff to these 2 nodes, then it's perfectly possible that you would lose the writes, because when he came back up, he'd roll them back. They'd be put into a file, a rollback file, but usually in most operational situations, that's never applied because it's too complicated to do that, so most people don't do it. Okay, let's do a quiz. So the quiz is, what happens if a node comes back up as a secondary after a period of being offline and the op log has looped on the primary? That's a scenario that we did not discuss, but maybe you can reason out what would probably happen. And remember, the op log is a capped collection, so it's possible that so much time has elapsed that when you go to look at the primary, that it doesn't have any of the operations that happen in the intervening time anymore because it's already looped. It's been 24 hours or something. So what do you think happens in that situation? And the choices are: the entire data set will be copied from the primary, a rollback will occur, the new node stays offline, does not rejoin the replica set as a secondary, or the new node begins to calculate pi to a very large number of decimal places. So what do you think happens in this situation where the op log rolls or loops, the capped collection loops?